The internet really seems to love useless information about different topics, and with the Arkham series being my favorite franchise of all time, I took the liberty to compile about 35 minutes of useless information about Batman Arkham Knight. Oh, and by the end of this video, you'll most definitely forget everything I'm about to talk about. So grab some soda cola and buckle in.
It's done. Gotham is safe.
Thank you, Bruce. For everything.
Goodbye, Jim.
The opening song you hear in Batman Arkham Knight is called I've Got You Under My Skin by Frank Sinatra, originally written by Cole Porter. Beautiful song, by the way, but simply from the title you can see why this specific song was chosen. Looking more into the lyrics, the song depicts being in love with someone so much to the point where they eventually get under your skin, but also being afraid of how that person might end up affecting you in the long run. It's pretty evident to see that this song was chosen to represent the relationship between Batman and the Joker, and regardless of what perspective it's coming from, it's still extremely indicative to the type of toxic but almost symbiotic relationship the Joker and Batman have. In the beginning of the game, you play as Officer Owens and you enter Polly's diner to go get some food, but there's various and easily missable conversations happening inside, so let's go over all of them real quick. This first couple was talking about how Bruce Wayne just bought 3 yachts and how he recently purchased the Potestas movie studios and how he's supposedly turning it into an amusement park. And you know, the man seems like the type to speculate a lot because to him, apparently the entire existence of the movie studios was only for tax dodging or a money laundering scheme for the Potestas family in Gotham. Then he goes on to educate his girl about the history of the Potestas family, and because of the movie studios only existing for money laundering purposes, they pumped out a bunch of low-budget movies that you can only find on VHS. Then he goes on to mention how Paul Sloan, aka the Charlatan, a D-list DC character, was in some of the movies, and how his passion for method acting turned him into a serial killer. Oh, and this guy owes his life savings to the IRS. This guy is on the phone with someone talking about Albert King's, aka the Goliath's comeback fight against Teddy Grant, aka Wildcat, getting cancelled. Now these guys aren't talking, but for those that have a keen eye, this is the same guy that goes on to rob the couple at the end of the game after the Nightfall Protocol. Now, this couple is talking about Christina Bell's slow descent into madness and how she was actually showing signs of being rather positive with her employees, but this lady thinks it was because Christina was looking for drama. She ends up detailing the time when she told Christina about how she got mugged in the Diamond District, and Christina apparently kept on asking pressing and rather odd questions like if they had weapons, if they hurt this lady, and if Batman showed up. But instead of Batman showing up, Robin showed up, and when this lady told that to Christina, she got very disappointed and angry, and she went on to say, I quote, "I'd rather be gutted and left on the street than to be saved by Robin." Yeah. Then the guy goes on to justify some of Christina's odd interest in Batman by saying how everyone is interested in Batman and how he would sometimes want to see him bad enough to where he would leave his wallet peeking out of his back pocket while walking through Park Row. Then he goes on to talk about how Christina killed every board member in Queen Industries because that's where she worked, but aside from her interest in Batman, the only peculiar sign she showed before going crazy was how she initially would let things slide like being late, but then she would go on to be more strict about it with her employees. But in one instance, Christina once pulled an employee into her office and got on his case about how he's been consistently late over the course of 15 years, and she ended up giving him an ultimatum. Either he gets fired on the spot or he makes up for all the time he was late working on a timekeeping side project for the next year. But after all that, and after Christina killing the board members, she walks out of Queen Industries and she says this to the lady: "My favorite thing about glass ceilings is playing with the shards." Now this lady here works at the Bank of Gotham in the Kingston district and talks about the day where this woman comes in and asks for the girl's manager who wasn't there that day, so she asks if this lady can make a deposit, and then she walks out in a hurry. What ended up being in the envelope that she left on the table was about $500,000 in cash, but the account number on the envelope ended up not being in the database, so she ends up finding out it's an old account and old enough to where she needs to look in the paper archives. So she goes to the filing cabinet to find the account number, and she also finds out how all of the other accounts in the old archive stopped being in use for the last 10 years, but this particular account deposits every month while still being in the old archive. So after finding out all that, this lady ended up doing absolutely nothing about the shady account history and just gives the envelope of money to her boss the following day. And then we have Bat Dad, and I can't exactly tell what he's talking about because he just keeps randomly saying shit to himself.
Besides, I wasn't afraid. I'm Batman. Idiot. Punk kid. You don't scare people like that. What if I had a heart attack? He'd have been sorry. I should go kick his ass. Some people got no respect.
Now maybe he could be reading through something on his phone, or maybe reading through the newspaper, but honestly, I'm not really sure. Wait. What he's saying makes a lot more sense if you pay attention to the moments before you take control of Officer Owens, and Bat Dad is saying all of this because he got jump scared by this dude.
Oh, and if you want some more coffee, just shout. Next service, waffles with bacon on the side.
Thought Batman was supposed to be tough.
And finally, to these guys. These two guys are workers at Hell's Gate Disposal Services, a garbage company that hires convicted felons, but then they go on to talk about how this guy is broke and how this guy blew his entire paycheck in a week before he could realize, and how he owes some money to some people, but those same people threatened to send a hit out on him for the whole dispute. Then this guy goes on to say how he heard that the tally man, the hitman the other guys threatened the other guy with, shot a guy's kneecaps in Arkham all the way from Blackgate. So then this guy goes on to talk about how there hasn't been any work for his, quote, specialized area of expertise since the Joker died. And then this guy goes on to talk about his job at Hell's Gate and how he can get the other guy a job there, but the boss of the company, well, there's two bosses of the company. One he describes as being smart and the other as being a bit of a hard ass. Then he goes on to say that the company has 3 big scores lined up, and by scores he means, I quote, totally legit above the waste disposal gigs, and how they need more men to, quote, defend the totally worthless garbage from any vermin. Okay. And then they notice that you, Officer Owens, is listening to the conversation, and they swiftly wrap it up while looking at what to order on the menu.
Well, hello, officer. What can we do for you this fine evening? If you don't mind, we really should get back to contemplating our menus.
You know, all I'm gonna say is hats off to the developers for adding these conversations in the game that you definitely missed until I told you about them. In the Arkham series, thugs are able to carry shotguns and assault rifles, but the only time we've been able to see a thug carry a pistol is in the beginning of Arkham Knight when you go to the safe house in Chinatown to rescue Poison Ivy. You can even see in Detective Vision that visually he's carrying a pistol, but they never actually added them in, so it shows that he's holding an assault rifle. Every time you go to GCPD to put away a super criminal you've just defeated, there's a marked area where you're supposed to park the Batmobile, but the developers only accounted for the Batmobile being parked in a certain orientation, so when you park the Batmobile in a way the game doesn't expect, it still shows Batman and the criminal get out and walk away from the front doors of GCPD. Here's the full conversation Jim has with whatever bureaucrat he's talking to on the phone.
I've heard these excuses before, sir. I don't remember you being an expert. You could start by telling the damn truth. I've got men searching as we speak. We're moving as fast as we can. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. Why don't they bill me when it's over? Being on this phone is costing lives, sir. This is time I don't have. I don't see much coming back the other way. We're on our own here. I've got men dying down here. I'm not a politician, sir. That's not my concern. I've got a solution. You just don't seem to want to hear it. Screw you. Damn bureaucrats. We're on our own.
The only time in the game where the camera doesn't follow you while running is when you're saving the hostage from the militia right after activating the radio tower at the movie studios. As you can see, it's rather jarring since we're always used to the camera tracking our direction. When you don the new batsuit, Lucius walks through the new technology and talks about how it features titanium dipped tri-weave armor plating, being a direct reference to The Dark Knight when Morgan Freeman's Lucius Fox talked about the exact same thing for that batsuit.
Well, Mr. Wayne, let me walk you through it. The outer and inner layers of the bodysuit are made of a titanium dipped tri-weave. It's between those layers where things get interesting.
Hardened Kevlar plates over titanium dipped tri-weave fibers for flexibility. It'll be lighter, faster, more agile.
If you take too long while performing the fear takedown, this happens.
I got him! Batman! Kill the hostage!
Bet you didn't expect that. Now, I'll be honest, for this entry, I don't really know what happened here. I kind of just wanted to show it to you.
Thanks, Oracle. I found a way to get the Batmobile into the compound. They'll pay for this. All of them.
In multiple areas of the game, you can find copies of the book Alice in Wonderland, and this one I found at Ace Chemicals. In order to slide in every other Arkham game, you toggle the right trigger, but in Arkham Knight you have to hold it down for whatever reason. And more about sliding, one thing that's famous in the Arkham games is opening vents by sliding into them, but there's only a select few vents where you're unable to do that. You can't do it at this vent in Ace Chemicals, you can't do it at this vent on the airship, you can't do it at this vent at the Bank of Gotham, and finally this vent in the abandoned shopping mall. You can find the missing skeleton crew of GCPD officers in the final room before reaching Scarecrow.
Dead cops. Fear-gassed. The men Jim had on guard.
The door is open.
When reducing the blast radius of the fear toxin bomb, not only does Batman cough because of the fear toxin in the air, but he actually has a coughing animation that you might not have seen before. How cool. The one time you're able to experience daytime in Gotham is when you're playing as Jim Gordon at the movie studios, but while you're playing as him, you can actually see civilian cars driving on the roads below you. It really gives you a bit of an idea of what Gotham is like when a supercriminal isn't trying to destroy it or take it over. Oh, and there's a few random spotlights from helicopters that didn't spawn in. After finding out Barbara's been taken by the Arkham Knight, the Joker references the Killing Joke by saying this.
Reminds me of the time I had something to tell old Jimbo myself. Now, on that occasion, I found visual aids helpful. That was a bad day. Fun, though.
When going to the orphanage to find Catwoman blindfolded and strapped to the chair, this is what she says if you just sit there and appreciate her features. Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Batman? That had better be you, and you had better be sorry. Yes, Batman, I'm restrained and blindfolded. You're not dreaming. Now let me out. Why don't you save me the trouble of wriggling out of these cuffs and set me free? Did you just come here to stare, or are you gonna help a girl out? If you're waiting for me to say please, then we'll both be here all night.
When going to the first Riddler racetrack, you can cut him off by just pressing B after decrypting his codes, but this is what he says if you just sit there and hear him out.
Rule the first. You will address me at all times as Riddler, the Riddler, or Mr. Nigma, sir. Otherwise, Detective, I expect your patented brand of churlish silence. Rule the second. All gauntlets, cowl-integrated microphones, and other communications devices, bat-themed or otherwise, are to be switched off prior to the start of the test. Should you be caught using any of these, you will be expelled from the course. Rule the third. The use of purpose-built riddle-solving equipment is strictly prohibited. I am familiar with the contents of your utility belt, Detective, and I will be evaluating any sudden additions over the course of this evening most suspiciously. Rule the fourth. In the event of fire or flood, I will be on hand to guide you to the nearest emergency exit. Assuming, that is, you are not too proud to follow my advice. In that eventuality, we will consider your stubbornly prideful suicide an admission of defeat. Rule the fifth. Do not ask for clues. Rule the sixth. Should I, in my exasperation, choose to provide you with a clue, hint, obliquely meaningful insult, or any other form of assistance, you will not ask for further elucidation, but instead thank me for my kind generosity, whilst adhering to the forms of address outlined in the very first rule. Rule the seventh. Bathroom breaks will be administered on a discretionary basis. Should we find ourselves at a pivotal moment in your arduous journey to self-realization and defeat, I expect you to hold it in. Rule the eighth. Any accidents resulting from my strict enforcement of the seventh rule are to be considered your fault entirely. Rule the ninth. You are required to recite back to me this full list of rules at any moment I request. Again, keeping in mind the naming conventions I outlined in the very first rule. Rule the 10th. I, the Riddler slash Mr. Nigma Sir, reserve the right to add or announce further rules if and when they become necessary. Yes, I know what you're thinking, Detective. Mr. Nigma Sir knows how to meticulously structure a good time. In any case, Detective, I'm getting rather tired of the way your stupidity forces me to outline the basics like this. So here's that code you've been waiting for. Let's see how long it takes for you to figure out how to use it.
For this entry, one can make the point that the Arkham Knight got the design of his suit from previous Batsuits that Lucius had made, and that's solidified by Lucius saying this.
That young impersonator of yours seems surprisingly well equipped. It's as if he's based his suit on my earlier designs.
When Jim throws the bat phone, I guess that's what we'll call it, when he throws it on the floor after finding out Oracle works with Batman, you would think that a sturdy looking phone could take being thrown at the floor, but I guess not, because the screen completely shatters. After being ambushed and shot by the Arkham Knight, in that same room you can find a refrigerator with ravioli rations from Arkham City. After catching the APC driver posing as the Arkham Knight actually gives you a call, but in the background you can clearly see it says Iceberg Lounge, and you would think that would help Batman sort of narrow down the places on where he could be, but I guess not. When picking up the Mark III weapon generator from the Batwing, the militia says it can pull a J-turn at 12 G-forces, and I'm sure you probably don't know what 12 Gs does to a human, so here's what that looks like.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, engage. Get on it, going up. On top. Coming down. Stay tight. 1, press. Deep breath. Get on it, you're going up. Hold it. Hold it. On top, breathe! Breathe! 1, 2, 3, try to hold for 3 seconds. Coming down.
In the Balancing Act Riddler room, you can find an open book on the table, and it turns out to be Phantom of the Opera. Now, the Riddler room isn't the only place you can find it in the game, but it's just where I first found it. This is what happens when you do absolutely nothing when paying the Penguin a visit at his weapons cache.
The Arkham Knight, Barbara Gordon. Tell me where they are.
So that's who we had. The Commissioner's little girl.
I'll break every bone in your body, Cobblepot.
They were going to see some geezer called Simon Stagg. I think he runs a pharmaceutical company or something.
Do not lie to me.
I'm not, I swear. They said he's about to leave Gotham. Those airships over the West River, it belonged to him.
Put him down! We'll shoot, Bat! 5! Drop him! 4! We'll kill you, we don't care! 3! Let go of him, now! 2! You're running out of time! 1! Too late!
Now, because I have an ultra-wide monitor, in some instances I'm able to see the animation the Joker does when he suddenly appears out of nowhere, so here's what that looks like.
Please, what are you doing? Bats, come on! Don't lock me in here. I'll do anything. Want a lottery done? I'll do it. How about Alfred? You got it. I wouldn't like to be that guy.
When destroying the center console at the Militia Watchtowers, you can see that it uses the same screen texture for the cryptographic sequencer from Arkham Asylum. When rescuing Simon Stagg, you can see the Militia soldier interrogate him in a way very similar to how Batman would, almost like the Arkham Knight taught them this way in how to interrogate someone, which in turn came from Batman.
Where are the files?
I'm not telling you.
You want us to cut off your fingers? I don't mind. We start with the fingers and see how high we go before you tell us.
But when rescuing Stagg on the other airship, the voice of this minigun brute changes within the matter of seconds, and I think it's pretty funny.
Stop us! Oh! But you couldn't stop yourself! yourself and betrayed Scarecrow for a little more. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, you're not sorry yet. But when Scarecrow's toxin starts pumping into this cell, I think you just might be. Oh God, no. I've seen what that stuff does.
All right, all of you. We need to charge the cloudburst and stop Batman from getting to the boss. Fail at either of those objectives, and I will personally make sure you're sucking on fear gas with Stag. Got it?
When confronting Scarecrow on the airship, this is what happens if you just let him talk while walking around you. When you're encountering the first Cobra tank, you can see how it's coded to not ever go inside GCPD. No matter how much you shoot at it, it'll never go inside.
Undetected and target the exhaust port. I can't attack the Cobra tank head on. I need to get behind it undetected and target the exhaust port. I can't attack the Cobra tank head on. I need to get behind it undetected and target the exhaust port.
And speaking about areas the Cobra tanks haven't been coded to, you can completely cheese the Cloudburst fight. Firstly, you have to have made enough progress in the story to where you have the EMP upgrade on the Batmobile, and only after that, you'll need to go to this room and solve the Riddler puzzle. And after you've done that, this room will essentially become useless, so when you're ready to do the Cloudburst fight, all you really have to do is just lure the tanks to this area and pick them off one by one.
Offline. I've got support nearby. I'm sending it in.
Cloudburst scan almost complete, sir.
Sir, we've got 3 Cobras left in the field.
Sure, it's boring, but if you're replaying through the game and don't really feel like dealing with the abundance of tank fights in the game, this is one way it can definitely be easier. But speaking about this section in the game, the Cloudburst tank exhibits some extremely odd behavior since it's not able to enter the puzzle room.
Let me show you what real damage looks like! Coward!
As you can see from the footage, the tank knows where you are so it can track you, but because it hasn't been coded to this specific room, it sort of just bugs the fuck out. Oh yeah, and this happened while I was playing. When tracking the Penguin's refrigeration trucks, the music is playing extremely loud and loud enough to where you can hear it from pretty far away. So here's what it sounds like at 100 meters. 200 meters, 300 meters, but at around 350 to 390 meters is when you're not able to hear it anymore. Like I mentioned previously, the thugs in the Arkham series have only been able to carry shotguns and assault rifles, but on the rooftop when the militia are trying to take out Ivy's plant, you can see them using a rocket launcher that you can actually use the disruptor on, but unfortunately, you can't make it explode when they pull the trigger. When playing a New Game Plus, you're not able to skip the Arkham Knight relay drone section even though you have all the tools to be able to take out the command center. When finding Allison Weirs during the Professor Pigside mission, it shows through the deep tissue scanner that she has 6 fingers on her left hand, but if you take the camera to zoom in, she only has 5. The facial animations improved dramatically from the base game compared to the DLC, and this most likely is the case because of how much extra time the devs had to work on the game. Take a look.
Don't worry, I'm getting them back.
I shouldn't even be here. I was laid off 2 weeks ago. A bunch of people were government cutbacks. Apparently Gotham doesn't need firefighters anymore.
Well,
You've brought him back too many times.
Detective. Help me. For Talia.
When I went to rescue the first of the missing firefighter crew, I found that this dude's hips don't lie. They don't lie not one bit. And speaking about hips that don't lie, I'm sorry, I couldn't come up with a better transition, but I just want to let you know that this is my second channel where you'll find Batman videos, video essays, skits, short films, and hell, I even plan on making food reviews eventually. Whatever good ideas that can come out of my abnormally large noggin will go on here, but on my main channel, I make videos on this thing, my 2019 Mazda Miata. You know, it's really hard for me to say this to anyone these days, but I love you.
Jesus. Oh. Tonight the music sings so loud. I wish that we could lose this crowd. Maybe it's better this way. We hurt each other.
So, if you're interested in cars, consider checking it out. But anyways, where were we? Every time you go to lock up a criminal at GCPD, it plays this theme that is extremely similar to the theme from The Dark Knight. Take a listen. If you ever spot the Joker with the Batmobile, you'll find out that he's completely invincible to the Batmobile's ride suppressor.
Guarded bats. The Arkham Knight is you! Elementary, my dear Bats. Can there really be anyone else who thinks that's a good look?
When going into the movie studios to help Robin with Harley's men, in the elevator they have this callback to Arkham Asylum, so much so to where the music being played is actually sampling the original Arkham Asylum theme. Take a listen. Now for this entry, one time I went to the clock tower and my man Bruce just kind of got stuck and I honestly don't really know what happened. A big point of contention with Arkham fans is trying to decide what each Arkham game does best, because most people say that Arkham Asylum has the best atmosphere, Arkham City had the best story, Arkham Origins had the best boss fights, and Arkham Knight has the best gameplay, but one thing I don't see getting talked not nearly enough about is how cinematic Arkham Knight is compared to the rest of the games. Like, whoever did the camera work in Arkham Knight, pat yourself on the back because you did your thing. When removing the power cell in the Batmobile while the city is full of fear toxin, this is what happens when you do absolutely nothing.
This is it, Bats. Can you feel the rush of that delicious toxin burning through your veins, creeping into that demented mind of ours? I sure can. I'm getting stronger, Bruce. I'm more alive with every breath you take.
Sir, you're running out of time. Get out of there now.
Stay calm. Take deep, slow breaths. Deep, slow breaths. All that effort must be tiring you out. You're getting sleepy, Bats. Rock-a-bye, Bats. See, I'm getting free. Soon you'll be the one trapped inside me. So keep taking breaths, great lungfuls of fear. Soon Bats will be gone, and I will be here. Okay, sweetheart. One more, but then it's really time for bed. Hush, little Batsy, listen to me sing. When Joker takes over, you won't feel a thing. And once this gas has set me free, I'm going on a Bat Family killing spree.
In the underground mall that's under construction, there's a platform that's just completely broken because you're able to grapple up to it, but you're unable to move once you're hanging from it. And speaking about that same area, if you just go around and look at the environment, it's pretty similar to what a Batcave-like environment would be like, and it honestly just makes me sit back and think what the developers were thinking when they modeled this area, because you only ever go down here once for the story and for any additional times when you're solving riddles or getting Riddler trophies. For those that are wondering, when heading towards the excavator tunnel, if you stand under the excavator drill while using the Batmobile remote, you'll just get moved out of the way, so no, you cannot kill Batman with this big ass drill. Now, I've genuinely never noticed this up until this playthrough of the game, but after the Batmobile is destroyed, if you try and use the Batmobile remote, it'll show this screen. Yet another thing the developers didn't have to add, yet they did anyway, and I appreciate them all the more for it. When rescuing Oracle after she gets yeeted off the building by Scarecrow, once you pick her up, this is how far you can walk until you hit an invisible wall, and Batman says this.
I need to get Barbara to safety in the Batmobile.
Since Arkham Knight is the only game in the series where Batman's head follows the movement of the camera, you can make him nod his head by looking up and just repeatedly pressing the A button. Similar to just about every other fact I've mentioned thus far, this one is quite useless indeed. When going after Deacon Blackfire, if you let him finish his monologue, his disciples start speaking in what you think is gibberish, but it's actually Latin and it roughly translates to, "And behold a pale horse, and who sat above. His name is Death and Hell. L was given to him as he followed him. Power over 4. Parts of the land of the slain, a sword of hunger and death, and the beast of the earth." And like I said, it's Latin, and truthfully Latin is a dead language, so the translation is extremely rough, but if you have an idea or if you can translate Latin better than Google can, let me know what he says down in the comments, and I'll leave a full script of what his disciples said in the description. In the Shadow Wars Season of Infamy DLC, if you follow the bloodshed without looking at the first spot of blood, it won't cause the thugs you run into to spawn, and it won't let you use the remote electrical charge on the generator. In one of the many random conversations you can have with the Joker while roaming through the city, he'll say this about the Batmobile.
Love the new car, Bats. Oh, all those guns. It's like an evil clown was whispering in your ear as you drew up the designs.
And this actually relates to the city story Change of Heart, where it details the conversation Lucius has with Bruce about the amount of firepower being used on the Batmobile, and it sort of explains why the Batmobile is really more of a combat tank than anything else. Throughout the Arkham games, there's quite a number of shared assets between them because all the games are being built upon the same game engine, Unreal Engine 3, but one thing I've always noticed since Arkham Asylum is that this telephone has always said, "You got a new message." In the Mad Hatter Season of Infamy DLC, when you're standing on the pages of the book while rescuing the final missing cop, if you try and go out of bounds, the Mad Hatter just smacks you as the barrier from escaping. In one of the final instances of rescuing Catwoman from the orphanage, Batman and her have this very funny conversation right before going to get her key.
So how's Robin?
Robin's fine.
Is he allowed out unchaperoned yet? Or does Daddy still keep a close eye?
He's more than capable.
I bet he is. This one's more of a fully grown wonder, if you know what I mean.
I don't.
If you go in the GCPD evidence locker, you'll find Killer Croc's old shot collar, but interestingly enough, it's actually the shot collar that's based on his look for the promotional art in Arkham Asylum. If you take a look here, you can see his collar in Arkham Asylum had some sort of electric element flowing through the sides, but the collar in Arkham Knight and the one in the promotional art doesn't show that. In Batman lore, one thing nobody has settled on is how to pronounce this guy's name, and as far as I know, this is the only time in the Arkham series where someone has actually corrected themselves in pronouncing his name.
2 ceremonial swords used by Ra's al Ghul.
Me personally, I've always said Ra's al Ghul because of Batman the animated series, but I know how the Nolan films started getting people to say Ra's al Ghul, which I always thought was strange. Now last but certainly not least, when you're playing as the Joker in the final chapter of the game, as you're hunting down the Penguin, Riddler, and Two-Face, you can hear a song playing in the background called Only You by the Platters, once again an amazing song. But this is actually a callback to Arkham City when the Joker sang this same song after the credits rolled.
You have 1 missed call. Call received 3 hours ago.
Only you can make this world seem right. Only you can make the darkness bright. Only you and you alone can thrill me like you do and fill my heart with love for only you.
Similar to the song I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the lyrics are extremely indicative of the relationship between Batman and the Joker, but in this, it really sounds as though the Joker is telling all this to Batman instead of it being up for interpretation like with I've Got You Under My Skin. Oh, and you could shoot the record player that's playing the song and it'll stop. And well, that just about wraps it up. I've officially taken about 40 minutes of your life away just telling you useless information about Batman Arkham Knight, which you'll definitely forget about after you click off this video. But before you click off this video, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. Like I said before, this is my second channel, so prepare to see content of all types. And when I say all types of content, I really mean it. Like, my ideas for videos never really stop, and that's honestly why I made this channel in the first place. I knew that making the switch from Batman videos to car videos on my main channel needed to happen, but even after getting that channel off the ground, I still feel like I have more to give in the Batman, and more specifically the Arkham landscape of content, so that's exactly what I'm here to do. And for the next couple videos you'll see on this channel, I'll be re-uploading my older Batman videos that I posted on my main channel. And it just so happens that today marks 1 year since I've started taking YouTube seriously, and you know, I could talk for years about how much all this means to me and how much I've wanted to do this ever since I was a kid, and just how thankful I am and blessed I am to not only be able to make quality content on one channel, but now to have a second channel to do that. It really does mean a lot to me. But more importantly than me being on YouTube for a year, today marks 2 years since Kevin Conroy passed away. And you know, I struggle to find the right words to really express how appreciative I am of him, because it's like, what do you say to the person that helped facilitate the greatest character in fiction and the reason why I even exist today? So I guess all I can say for now is thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. You will forever be missed.
I live in New York, and after the attacks on 9/11, we were getting all these, hundreds of meals ready, and this one guy in the middle of the night, like 3 nights into this, he goes, "So my day job is I'm an architect." He says, "What's your day job?" I said, "Well, I do voices mostly." He went, "I knew it!" He said, "You're the guy who does Batman. You're that Kevin Conroy." So he goes into this dining hall, And this is, the first week after the attack, and there'd been like just this somber sadness. And you hear him go, guys, you're not gonna believe who's been cooking your dinners. It's Batman. There's this long silence, and you hear, bullshit, from the back of the place. And he said, then someone else says, make him prove it. So I thought, oh, this is good. So I'm in the back kitchen, and I do from the back kitchen, I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. There's this long pause, and then you hear from the back of the place, holy that is Batman. And suddenly people were laughing. And the architect who had recognized me said, what's it feel like to be Santa Claus? I said, because that's what just happened here.